Hello and welcome to Cult Classic Society, the podcast where I, Bobby Davies, and my pal Tim Martini. Say hi, Tim. Oh, good. Yeah, you're so cool. Throwing up the horns. We look at all our favorite pop culture stuff. We look at movies, TV, video games, comic books, music. Today we are looking at a movie. We are looking at Jim Carrey's The Mask, which is based on a comic book. So we're hitting two birds with one stone, sort of. And I know, we're breaking the rules. We started this podcast saying we're going to show each other new stuff that neither of us know. Well, you know how limiting that is, everyone? There's so much good stuff that we've both seen. And what are we going to do? Never talk about The Mask? That's stupid.
Yeah, that's sacrilege.
Exactly. Why would we not talk about such a good movie and a ton of good TV and movies and records that we've both read? Why would we ignore them? We're called Cult Classic Society. We've got to hit all the cult classics. Don't get me wrong, there'll still be plenty of stuff that one of us hasn't seen, but we'll do this. Right, how are you, Timothy?
I'm good. So it's a weird time for movies right now, actually, because in America it's like dumping ground season, so you're going to get all their trashy movies. So they're also going to release that here. But in the UK, it's also weird for us because we get all the like movies that are trying to get that Oscar nomination now. So like next month we're getting Poor Things and The Iron Claw.
Oh, I can't wait for The Iron Claw. I'm looking forward to that.
And yeah, but America's already had that. So right now it's just like weaving through the like...
We're not getting until like February, are we?
Yeah, February 9th.
Oh, man.
I'm not done my calendar because I've been very excited for that movie. So right now it's just like trying to like see what movies are actually good and what movies are actually shit. Because, you know, there's so many movies I need to see within a small period of time before, you know, Oscars start.
So, we're looking at The Mask today. Everyone knows this movie as the Jim Carrey movie. It's originally based on a much darker comic book written by Doug Mahnke and John Arcudi. The film is a much lighter tone because they hired Jim Carrey. They wanted him to bring his personal touch to the character. Directed by Chuck Russell, who, if I call Russell Chuck, he's got two first names for a name. That's not my fault. I'm going to try my best. But Chuck Russell directed this movie. He also directed a fair few others, including Nightmare on Elm Street 3, which gets a reference in this movie.
Nice.
Yeah, look at that.
It's actually one of the best Nightmare movies as well, so good on it.
What's your relationship with The Mask, Tim?
So my earliest memory of it was seeing a poster for it at a Burger King in Brighton. Then I did just pick up the movie from a local VHS store, actually. Watched it, loved it. Then I watched some of The Mask, hated it.
As you should do.
It wasn't until my teenage years where I read the comic. And yeah, very, very different beasts.
Yeah, I mean,
it's so important in comparing the two because you're basically comparing two different properties in the way that they're presented.
They're like 10% the same idea.
Yeah, the only similarity is standing up because I'm the green mask.
Yeah. And yeah, my relationship with this was I probably watched this far too young. I remember seeing it as a kid, and to be honest, it wasn't until I rewatched it as an adult that I got some of the jokes. A bit like The Simpsons in that way. Like, you miss stuff because it's not meant for you.
Yeah.
And there's some of it that's quite dark. There's a scene, we'll talk about it when we get to it, that actually used to freak me out a bit as a kid. But we'll get to that.
Okay, yeah.
So the movie starts. We're in Edge City, which is...
I tried to write the Adam Copeland joke. I tried. I tried.
My theory on Edge City is most places feel like when they make a fake city, it's meant to be New York. This feels more like it's meant to be like Chicago.
That was immediately my fault, actually.
Yeah, feels much more like a Chicago or somewhere like that, not New York, because it's just that is not the density of New York, is it?
No.
We have some scuba divers doing work underwater on some pipe work, presumably, or water main, maybe, or maybe for cabling, for power, whatever. They're doing some work. And the diver finds a box that's all chained up, like he's meshed into the rock, and he kind of pulls it. It starts to come loose. And as that happens, he turns around and sees the pipe that they're lowering for him. The chain breaks and falls on him. Thus, you know, the curse of the mask actually starts by, I don't think it kills him, but by hurting this guy. As it happens,
I think it killed him.
Yeah. If we're gonna stick with the dark side of the comic books, he's almost definitely dead.
Yeah.
The massive pipe bashes on the box and sends the mask kind of floating to the surface. In the there is a deleted scene on the Blu-ray. Did you watch it?
No, I didn't.
I didn't watch it this time, but I have watched it before, where you see before this Vikings kind of coming ashore and burying the box.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of it. There's not much to it. You don't need the scene. I see why they deleted it. If you need to save some time, that's going to go. Stanley, who is Jim Carrey. This is our first Jim Carrey of anything.
Yeah, it is actually.
It's quite surprising considering how prolific he was, especially like in the 90s and 2000s.
Well, the problem is we've both watched all of Jim Carrey's stuff, so
yeah. Trust me, Liar Liar is now on the cards.
Oh, I hope it is.
Stanley, Jim Carrey, is at work. He works at a bank, and he's bought some concert tickets for him and a girl, and she totally cucks him.
She wrote Stanley is a cuck.
Yeah, she says, "Oh, but my best girlfriend is coming into town. I can't just leave her." And he goes, "Oh well, you take your friend. You take your friend. You can. You know what? You can leave her. Stanley bought you those tickets. Stanley's a good dude."
You bought the tickets for you.
Although Stanley does say something weird here, when Charlie's like, "That's never going to happen."
He says, "I'm wearing her down,"
which is the kind of the person who's no good trying to pick another person up. That's kind of their mentality. It's like, I think they're going to like me soon, right?
I'll get her eventually.
Charlie wants to take Stanley to the Coco Bongo Club.
Yeah.
And, it's exclusive, and they're not.
No, they're not. They are not.
Did you know Jim Carrey owns a club in Cancun in Mexico?
No.
And he called it Coco Bongo.
Of course he did.
And Katie has been there. Yeah.
What did you think of it?
It was, I've seen some videos. It's insane. There's not quite burlesque, but kind of befeathered dancers all over the place. And there's points where you're basically allowed,
like in the movie.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. He's a bit more crazy and a bit more Latin American, but
okay.
I think their vibe was initially the same idea. Yeah, that kind of throwback to the 40s, 50s deal. Cameron Diaz shows up.
Introducing Cameron Diaz.
Exactly. This is her very first acting gig. Her character is called Tina, and immediately she's presented as kind of a 40s pinup.
Yeah.
So she's like kind of goes up her. She's wearing the dress. There's a saxophone solo.
Yeah,
and it's like
on her.
Yeah, well, she's presented a bit like in an old detective movie. She's presented like a femme fatale.
Yeah, that's actually what I wrote. And because also she's dressed in red as well, which is the signaling colours.
The colour of the harlot. Sorry, we watched Good Omens 2 weeks ago, and that Scottish guy's in my head.
I did my film study, so I know.
Tina, the character that Diaz plays, actually isn't in the comic books. There's kind of two characters that are weirdly used to amalgamate another character from the comic books.
Yeah.
Which is Stanley's girlfriend in the comics. Is kind of half Tina and half another character who we'll meet a bit later. Charlie goes to talk to her, but she totally piles him off. Goes, "Here's my wet coat." And she goes and sits with Stanley, which I love because she clearly does not like Charlie's energy from the outset. She's like, no, this guy's a creep. And what does Charlie do?
Oh, he sniffs
her coat. Yeah, like a fucking creep. It's so weird. Stanley struggles with his desk awkwardly while talking to Tina. He's trying to like crank the drawer open, and then he ends up hitting it and hurting himself.
And it's a very vigorous handshake. Like, yeah, nice to meet you.
Tina comments on Stanley's tie, and he gets like a total hard on, which is what she's actually trying to do.
Yeah,
we find out
pulls him in as well by the tie.
Yeah, she says it looks like a Rorschach test of a woman riding bareback, quote unquote. Because although riding bareback means you're riding a horse without a saddle, I think she's inferring something else.
Yeah, it means something else.
It's a choice in words for sure. She then goes full Basic Instinct. The camera pans from like her legs up to her face, but in the process she does the leg cross.
Yeah.
So she looks like she's doing the Basic Instinct interrogation thing.
Yeah, Sharon Stone.
Yeah, that one. Stanley actually is the one who brings it back to business. He's like, okay, about this account you want to set up. But in his blathering, he goes to an electric pencil sharpener, and what does he do to him?
He shoves a pen in there, and so he just breaks his pen.
Probably the sharpener as well.
Yeah,
he makes a horrible fucking sound. Tina, we then see, has a hidden camera in her bag. So maybe, I mean, Charlie does give off a creepy energy, but maybe the reason she picked Stanley is because his desk has the better view for the vault. It shows you kind of why, although she's definitely being objectified for her like feminine wiles, and it's definitely
power play.
It's also
to advantage.
Well, I think this being the kind of early 90s, what the director's quite cleverly done there is you get the male gaze part because everyone's leering over Cameron Diaz, and then you get the part where she's actually outfoxed everyone.
Yeah,
I'm actually here to help rob this bank. We jump across and we meet Dorian, who is our main villain for the piece, who is also not in the fucking comic book.
No, they made it for the film.
Yeah, and him and his goons are watching the feed, and one of the goons brings up, they're the big boss, Nico. You're not worried about Nico? And Dorian's like, no, I ain't worried about Nico. I'm planning to overthrow Nico. And they all do a weird evil guy laugh together. Mwah, indeed. Stanley visits a mechanics, and I can't. Being on video is weird. We'll get used to it.
Yeah.
Stanley visits a mechanic, and they joke about people's cars and how much they're ripping people off. And he goes, "Oh, what is this?" He doesn't even tell him what it is. He just goes, "It's about $700."
Yeah.
And do you realize the interior of this location? Do you recognize it?
No. Where is
it's actually the same the same place they shot the interior scenes of the Ghostbusters fire station.
Really?
So that's much like Friends as well. That's in California, and the exterior is in New York.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is why I don't think you actually see the Ghostbusters come out of that like on foot or not in the car. So there's obviously someone else driving the car.
Yeah.
They don't have to get the actors over there. Same with Friends. When they do the pan up to the building, you don't see any of them.
No.
Cuts obviously, and they're in LA.
Save money, right?
Yeah. They tell the dodgy mechanics tell Stanley that he's going to need a new transmission, and that's going to cost. They're fully taking the piss. And
it was an oil change.
Yeah, he just wanted an oil change, and they're like, your transmission's got to go. And Stanley's like, there's no price on this. And they said, yeah, it's got to be expensive, because they're arseholes.
They don't even tell him what the price is.
They don't, they just say it's going to be expensive. Stanley gets the loaner car, which is a piece of rust-covered shit. And what does he do with it?
Well, he has to drive it to the club because, he needed a ride there.
And he pulls up, and everyone's laughing at him. And he says, oh, it's a classic. But quite quickly, after he gives it to the valet, he finds Charlie, who's with some girls, and he's being a bit creepy. But they're kind of using him as well. Yeah, but they're kind of using him as well because he's like, oh, I can get us into the club.
Yeah.
So he knows the bouncer, and he quickly gets him and the two girls into the club. But who doesn't get into the club?
Stanley.
No. And the bouncer stops him. He even tries to go beyond the road himself because, oh, no, I'm with Charlie. And he's like, no. And at Dorian's request, they get rid of him. And there's a line here that is horrific.
What is it?
So they've got, the bouncer has Stanley over his shoulder, and he goes, watch it, I'm a bleeder. For fuck's sake. And as a final insult, they throw him into the gutter where he stands up, like brushes down his dirty coat, and then a big car pulls a lot and splashes him. And who gets out of the car?
Tina.
So not only is he now covered in water, it was Tina that did it, and she recognizes him straight away.
Yeah.
This is almost, it's quite interesting, her characterization, because almost immediately she's femme fatale, and then the next scene, her turn starts almost straight away.
Yeah.
So she's clearly being a criminal in the first one, over flirtatious. Then the next scene, she's really nice. She remembers who Stanley is. She's really nice to him.
Yeah, it's like, well, because it's established that in the first scene she's in, she's doing it for Dorian. So now that she's actually getting to be herself, she's more nice about it.
Yeah, she's just being herself. and Stanley does a horrible job of flirting with her.
Yeah, because of course he does.
The valet bring the loan car back round, and he says, "This isn't what I drove in. I drove in a Porsche." And she's just like, "Okay, yeah, okay." Maybe she's now realizing that Stanley's a bit odd.
And he goes, "I can't believe you did this." It's like, you are not getting a tip.
Yeah, no tip for you. I've lost my Porsche. Now I've got this rust-covered piece of shit. Stanley drives off, and halfway across a bridge, what happens?
The car breaks down.
And he is pissed off. He attacks the car, kicking it. And I don't know if Carrey is a big fan or even is aware at this point anyway. He probably is now. But he's aware of the work of John Cleese. But he is just doing Basil Fawlty.
What is it? His slapstick's just so good.
Yeah, but the way he attacks the car and the way he moves his limbs is like, he's like the American version. It's the American version of Basil Fawlty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would agree.
So good. The bumper falls off, the car basically explodes without exploding, the steam hisses out, it kicks out. Stanley looks pissed off, and he goes to the bridge, the rail at the edge of the bridge, leans over, and he thinks he sees someone drowning in the river. So what's his action, Tim? What does he respond to?
He runs down, runs in, jumps in the water to go and save this mysterious person. But
he actually also shouts a lot. He shouts a line that he does in another movie, which I think is Dumb and Dumber. He goes, "I know CPR."
Yeah.
It's not a person, as you said. It's just trash.
But there is the mask.
Yeah. Well, obviously, what he thought was the head is the mask. He picks it up, and what happens?
He gets word by police, and they ask him, "Is everything okay?"
Yeah, they shine a light down on him, and he's like, "Yeah, I was just looking for my mask." Stanley trudges in to his apartment block, and he's soaking wet.
Yeah.
And his horrible landlord, some moody old woman, shouts at him for waking her up, and then shouts at him for ruining her new carpet.
Yeah, he hasn't got the best living situation.
No, I mean, this place must be cheap for him to put up with it. Like, it must be affordable. And
when she shuts the door, he goes, "I need you back to the laboratory to get your bulbs tightened."
And then he laments, "Oh, I should have said that."
Yeah.
Because she doesn't hear that. It's that thing, isn't it, where you like, in the shower a day after an argument, you go, "Shit, I should have said this."
The perfect comeback.
Like the perfect comeback. Let's rewind time. Stanley goes into his flat, and we meet Milo, who is the cutest ass little beagle.
Yeah,
Milo.
Milo
isn't in the comic books yet again, and I read a thing saying the other half of the girlfriend replacement is Milo. It's some of the stuff that she does, Milo kind of does in this. The character in the comic book is a very neglected girlfriend. Now it's a femme fatale and a dog. Let's see how that works out.
Yeah, nice balance.
Stanley puts on his old school cartoons, which Jim Carrey also loves. It's apparently one of the reasons he took the role, because the character in the script already liked these old cartoons, which obviously was the Mask character a bit later. And it's a Tex Avery one that he watches where the wolf goes crazy over a girl. He's like doing the proper wolf whistle and the heart thumps and stuff, and the jaw drop.
I think that's like iconic Tex Avery like animation. I think
especially that wolf.
Yeah, I think that wolf also sometimes almost gets confused with being Tex Avery, who is the animator.
Yeah, the wolf isn't called Tex Avery. Not that I don't think so anyway.
No, it's not. I actually don't know what the wolf's name is, but it's that iconic.
There is the bits with Milo and Stanley are mostly improvised, because obviously you're trying to get a dog to play ball, even if it's trained. So the bit where Milo wouldn't let go of the frisbee and Jim Carrey's like pulling on it and then he hits himself in the face, that's all improvised by Carrey. That wasn't planned.
Of course it is.
And apparently and you can hear it when he's being the Mask as well. So much of it is ad-libbed by Carrey.
Oh yeah. That's because he's just so good at improvising. Like, that's just who Jim Carrey was.
He's one of the
he's retired from acting, he said.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how long that lasts. The landlord shouts through the wall because the cartoons are too loud. So he gets annoyed, but he changes it to some interview where some dude is talking about the metaphorical masks that we all wear.
He's actually a recurring character in the second movie.
Is he really?
He's in the opening scene.
I think I've only seen that. I saw that when it like came out in 2003 or something, and I refused to watch it again because I love this movie. It's like, it's so bad that I will not watch this again.
It's horrendous.
Stanley imitates the dude from the interview. He's like, we all wear these masks metaphorically, and as he does it, he's pulling up the mask, and he kind of tries to suction itself to his face.
Yeah,
and he kind of pulls it away before he goes, oh, okay, let's do it, and he puts it towards his face. And the mask itself is made of wood, and it has this kind of, for those of you who are watching this rather than listening, he has like a metal thing down the forehead, and that's it. It's kind of a wooden mask, but as it transforms and sucks itself onto his face, it kind of bends and molds around him. Before we kind of see the final outcome, he spins like the Tasmanian devil.
And there's a Taz pillow on his sofa.
So already you can see all the cartoon. The first thing he does with the power of the mask is spin like Taz.
Yeah,
which is
a cartoon.
And then he kind of stops, and he has the green head, which we all kind of, if you know the mask at all, obviously you know the green head, and he's wearing like a flashy red zoot suit. And we get one of the first catchphrases of the movie. What does he say to him?
Smoking.
As he looks in the mirror, he kind of compliments himself, saying that he is smoking. So that character, the mask, I kind of differentiate from Stanley. They're kind of two sides of the same coin, I think. When he is the mask, I'll call him the mask. And without the mask, he's Stanley.
Yeah, because they are essentially two different people.
Yeah, the prosthetic took 4 hours to apply.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, considering, you hear about, people spending 6-7 hours getting full body prosthetics. The fact that they was like this one kind of to make it. And you know what? Congratulations to them for doing such a good job, because at no point does it look like it hasn't melded to his head.
No, it looks very... Actually, well, if that was to happen in real life, it looks very realistic for what it is.
I love the CGI in this movie.
I'm going to say it's not very dated, actually. I think it holds up in most places.
I think a lot of it is because they purposely went cartoony as well, which obviously really helps. He says another great line here, which reminded me of anyone who's listened to the Attitude Era podcast or read Jeff Hardy's poetry book. It reminded me, because he said...
I know exactly what you're going to say.
So in The Mask, he says, it's party time, P-A-R-T-Y, because I gotta. And Jeff Hardy does this awful... And I love you, Jeff Hardy, but he does this awful poem where he says H-A-R-D-Y.
Anti-Hardy fans.
I love you, Jeff, but my God, please stick to what you're good at. The Mask, like we said, is a different character to Stanley, but what it does is it kind of enhances like the deepest, darkest characteristics and desires of the wearer.
Yeah.
So they're sort of the things that are deep inside of you that you might not want to show people, or that for like societal reasons you might not bring out, but they're there and they kind of bring them to the surface, which is why Stanley becomes like a cartoon character come to life, because he loves cartoons. So why wouldn't his deepest kind of want basically to become this super cartoon character?
Exactly.
The Mask leaves the apartment and he sees a please be quiet sign on his landlord's door. He starts tiptoeing and creaking all the floorboards. And as he does so, his alarm clock, like an old school analog alarm clock that's kind of alive, jumps out of his pocket and starts laughing and ringing. And he has to chase it with like an oversized mallet, destroying the floorboards, making so much noise. The landlord comes out and she tries to shoot him with a 12-gauge shotgun.
As you do.
He kind of bounces off the walls and the ceiling and out of the window at the end of the corridor and out onto the street.
He just becomes a 2D splat on the floor.
And he goes, "Hey, look, Mom, roadkill." And then he stands up like in 2D and then puts his finger in his mouth and inflates himself again. And he's back.
Looney Tunes cartoon.
Exactly. That's it. He's a living cartoon. A car pulls up and beeps at him. And what does he do to him?
He pulls out the tiniest little air horn and just presses it, and it just destroys the car.
Yeah, it's so loud that it takes out all the windows of the car. And the dude just drives off with this destroyed car. So good. He blows it like it's a gun and then kind of saunters off.
Did you notice the walk he does? So he
No,
he does like one like long extension with his left leg. Then he does two little hops with his right.
yeah, he kind of is very Jim Carrey physical kind of. That's why I called it a saunter because obviously not a normal. Unlike you, I hadn't taken exact note of how he did it.
Because it was the first thing I noticed. Like, it's like that's a weird like pattern he's doing.
You'll notice like every time the mask leaves the frame as well to go to another scene, he does like puts his arms up like he's gonna run, then
Yeah.
to the other side, and then runs out of the shot. They're like very physical, very again bringing cartoons into a real life dimension.
Yeah.
There's some lowlives who are like, oh, look at this, and they see the mask. They're like, hey, you got the time, buddy? He's like, yeah, I do. Look at that. It's exactly 2 seconds before I honk your nose and pull your underwear over your head. And what does he do, Tim?
He does exactly that. Like,
After he does that, they all chase the mask down an alleyway. And as they get to the end of the alleyway, he's set up like a balloon animal stall and he's dressed like a carny with like a straw hat and a vest with stripes down it. And he just starts insulting them. He's like, I don't like the look of you, kid. You bother me. He does that kind of 1940s like carny voice. He does all these balloon animals. And then he also pulls out like a used condom and says like, oh, wrong pocket. And he hands the leader a dog and then he pops it as he gets to it. He goes, sorry, son, the dog was rabid. I had to put her down. It's so good. It's that kind of gangster voice he does. The kind of New York, Chicago, 1940s, 50s movies gangster thing. And then what's the last thing he makes out of a balloon, Tim?
a Tommy gun.
It's a Tommy gun. And they all run away scared. He doesn't actually kill any of them. In the comic, they would have all died.
Oh yeah, gruesomely as well.
Now, there is a deleted scene, which apparently didn't make it onto the DVD. I haven't found it anywhere, but I've just read about it a few times now. Before this, that same gang rob Stanley.
Oh.
And they take his watch. He offers them the mask. And they're like, we don't want that piece of shit. We want your watch. And they take it, which is why when he gets up into his apartment and the landlord goes, do you know what time it is? He goes, no. I don't know what time it is because he had his watch stolen.
Oh, okay, that would make sense. But at the same time, I don't think that's a necessary scene.
No, the fact that they tried to mug him there is enough.
Yeah, exactly.
He says, with these powers, I could be a superhero. But first, and then he just goes and causes fucking chaos.
He just goes to the mechanics place. He just like two like massive exhaust pipes. And he spins at them.
And where do they end up, Tim?
Do we want to say now or when the police show up?
Well, let's just say for now, has anyone seen the original Swedish version of Girl with a Dragon Tattoo? So he gets revenge on them, but we'll say how in a minute. In the comics, his revenge is much more brutal. He actually like murders them.
Yeah,
and like all their guts spill out and stuff. And he hangs one of them with the chains from the shop and stuff.
Yeah, again, gruesome stuff.
Stanley wakes up in bed and he thinks it was all a dream. Until what happens?
Until the police knock at his door.
Lieutenant Kellaway specifically knocks at his door to talk about the disturbance last night. Stanley obviously realizing this isn't a fucking dream.
Yeah. And he's like, did you hear what happened last night? It's like, no, it's like, you didn't hear your landlord find a 12-gauge shotgun directly outside your door? It's like, no.
I've got an inner ear problem, is what he says.
Yeah. It's like, what?
And then Kellaway tells him his pajamas are ridiculous, and then they kind of end that there.
Yeah.
And Stanley turns around after closing the door and realizes that he's running late for work. He sends Milo to go find his keys. And what does he do with the mask?
He throws it out of the window.
What does the mask do?
Flies right back in.
Comes right fucking back. He's not done with Stanley. The mask is not done. He lands back on his sofa, kind of half nestled under some pillows.
Nestled safely under my tree.
And he's still talking about Jingle All the Way. We're like a month after Christmas.
It's iconic. It's forever.
We see the mechanics as Stanley comes to check on his car again. And we actually see where the exhaust pipes are. Where are they?
Up their poop chutes.
The exhaust pipes are up their exhaust pipes. And we hear one of the police say, we need a proctologist. You heard me. And we also see that there is a couple of journalists trying to get whatever the story is. Stanley comes into work late and his boss is an arsehole about it. And we find out from Charlie that his boss is a Nepo baby. Yay! We love those people. Stanley and Charlie talk about Tina. Charlie says Stanley needs someone more realistic, someone more down to earth. And then he describes like every physical feature of Peggy as she walks in. Peggy is...
So that's very specific.
Peggy is one of the journalists who was outside the mechanics earlier, and she asked to speak to Stanley, knowing that he is a customer of the mechanics.
Well, he tries to say, I don't have a car. They pollute.
And it's just, you don't own this specific car? And he goes, oh, that car, yeah.
I forgot about it.
Stanley knows who Peggy is. She knows about her column. He sent a letter in called Nice Guys Finish Last, which is before that whole thing was co-opted by neckbeards.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Stanley, at least at the beginning, is an actual nice guy. And he gets kind of corrupted, whereas all those neckbeards online, none of you are nice guys if you're listening. And you're one of those people that say, women don't like nice guys. No, you're a dick. You don't realise it.
Oh, nice guys.
Yeah,
you're not nice guys, you're incels. Just leave it at that.
And you know what? We don't want you. This is the second time I've done this. We don't have a huge audience, and I keep telling people to fuck off, Tim. But to be fair, the people I'm telling to fuck off deserve to be told to fuck off.
No, if they leave hate comments, at least it drives up engagement.
Oh, yeah. Bring it on. I'll have it. If there's a response, it's most likely me, unless Tim's in the mood for a row.
We'll see.
Peggy and Stanley seem to have some kind of chemistry. They're kind of hitting it off.
Yeah, they got a little spark.
Yeah. Dorian is brought in to see the boss, to see Nico. And this is the scene that used to freak me out as a kid. Because Nico's goons force Dorian onto the floor at gunpoint and put a golf tee in his mouth.
Yeah.
And then Nico kind of threatens Dorian and says, I hear you've been running my club to run your little scams and schemes. And then he uses the golf tee that the goons put in Dorian's mouth and force him to have it, put the golf ball on it. And he swings and he takes like a blow from a golf club.
Yeah.
I don't know why that creeped me out so much as a kid, but like someone having so much power that they can make you lay there and fucking take a golf swing.
Yeah.
Oh, mate.
One of Nico's like henchmen looks like a British bulldog.
He does, doesn't he? Yeah.
I actually have to look at the credits to see if it was him. It isn't, but it just looked too much like him.
He could not get rid of his Brumley accent to do a kind of gangster voice. He couldn't do it. Not a chance. Stanley is asleep now. We're obviously forward to this night, dreaming about Tina, and at the last
night, he would have done it differently.
You know the way he says to his landlord, he says, "Oh, we should have said that." It's kind of that, but for his encounter with Tina last time, and he gets kind of more intense, and he's being really suave, and he's smoking, and then Tina turns his head and just starts licking his face, and it turns out, obviously, that's Milo in real life.
Welcome to the world of acting, Cameron Diaz.
Yeah, she fucking does it with aplomb. She's on.
Yeah.
Stanley wakes up and he looks at a newspaper cutting that he's cut out of Tina that he's got on his wall, which is fucking creepy.
Bit creepy.
Especially for someone you know. So weird.
Well, I don't even know. Like, you just met her like the day before.
Well, he's already crushing on her and he's got her picture up on the wall. So wrong. This is where he puts on the mask for the second time, and it's the first time we get the iconic yellow suit.
I was going to say, he doesn't just put it on. First he sees it, but he's like, oh, no, I don't want this. Throws it behind the sofa. Then he dives after it.
Yeah, and he kind of re-gets it, and we see the iconic yellow suit. It's actually based on one of Jim Carrey's own suits that his mum made him for his stand-up. Do you want to know how long the yellow suit that everyone says is the mask suit, do you want to know how long it's worn for in this movie?
Like 5 to 10 minutes?
5 minutes, yeah.
Jesus.
And he has to
put on over all the advertisements, so...
Yeah. And then he has another one of his catchphrases.
Is it, hold on, sugar, daddy's got a sweet tooth tonight?
No, sir. Somebody stop me.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah.
Dorian is setting up a bank job at the bank Stanley works at.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, when these men kind of congregate around the door and they're ready to blow the door, the boss just bursts out carrying bags of cash. And the police come along and they kind of corner. Obviously, they're like, "Oh shit, the police are here!" And
it causes a shootout while he's just escaping.
Yeah, you hear gunfire and police sirens, and the mask just goes. And he pulls up outside the Coco Bongo in the longest limo I've ever seen. I thought this was an edit. Apparently, it's not. Apparently, that's a real limo.
Yeah, it looked like a real limo, so you probably get one of those. It
cuts away for a second, then goes back. So I thought they had edited it to like roll to the end and then almost to the beginning and roll again because it was so long. The mask comes up to the bouncer and he says, "I'm not on the list, but all my friends are." And he lists off all the presidents that are on the notes and he throws it all in here like thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And he's not just bribing the bouncer, he's caused like a scramble.
Yeah. And what's like, as that's happening, the bouncer goes, "All right, no one's allowed in now."
Yeah. Well, that's just the way the mask wants it. Tina is singing in the club. This is where she's like the proper pin-up femme fatale. She's in the outfit and everything. The mask sits in a corner and then he recreates the Tex Avery. He does the full thing. He does the jaw drop, the tongue out. He does the heartbeat, the googly eyes. And then
he turns his head into a wolf head. I would say that's the only time the CG looks a bit bad.
Yeah, but I think even because it's a comedy, it's kind of, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was meant to be scary. I think it wouldn't hold up. But
yeah, it doesn't distract from it, I find.
Dorian is told there was a problem and he leaves. The mask then takes over the band, kind of spinning them and changing their suits.
Yeah,
and they play a
Pachuto.
Yes, they do. And there becomes like an intense dance scene between the mask and Tina in front of the whole club.
It's incredible.
Apart from the spinning and the throwing, that was all Carrey and Diaz as well.
That's amazing.
So yeah, apart from the bit where he spins her and then throws her, that was all Carrey and Diaz.
Wow.
Dorian.
They do that whole dance sequence is just incredible. And like, I just love the idea though, like this is their first time meeting like the mask and Tina, and they just like start doing that dance.
They've got chemistry straight away. Dorian finds the kind of his lead henchman has got a gunshot wound and he's in his office and he tells him that someone robbed the bank before they could. And the other goon, the one with long hair, points out that it was the mask who is now dancing with Tina. The mask really reminds me of, he does something here and I don't know what it is. It's the way he kind of, when he throws Tina up in the air and he checks his watch and he goes, as if he's got to go do something. It really reminded me of Crichton from Red Dwarf. Because the prosthetic kind of pulled in the same way as well. Yeah. He's got the square jaw like Crichton.
It just reminds me of the Simpsons episode where they're dancing in that 50s diner and Homer throws Marge up and she just comes through the entrance of the place again.
Yeah, she went through the ceiling and come back in. The mask kisses Tina. I said, "Is this consensual?" She reacts very positively to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her shoes that she fly off.
Yeah, I mean, this one's consensual. There is one later that definitely isn't.
No.
One of the goons shoots, and he shoots the tie. Tina falls, but it causes the tie, the bit that falls on the floor, to turn back into Stanley's pajamas.
Yeah.
Dorian's like, "Where's my money?" And the mask starts acting like a financial advisor.
During his expenses.
He's like got the ticker tape and everything. He's like, "It's all in the stocks and the bonds." He's like, "Oh my God." Like, because of the phrasing that was chosen, it's just so funny. Like, "Where's my money?" "I'll tell you where your money is, say." They tried to shoot him, but he kind of does the bends, and then he turns into a bullfighter and a Cossack dancer, and then lastly Elvis Presley. Before he turns
cowboy, yeah.
Yeah, I would say before the final one, which is the one where he gets shot, which is the cowboy, and he does like kind of like he gets shot through the gut, and he does the strut. And what I'll say here is, none of them are reacting to this supernatural stuff that's happening. I feel like there must be other supernatural stuff going on in their world for them to not react like this.
And then he just starts doing like death quotes.
Before, just before that, I was going to say though, in the comic books, he is invulnerable, but he's more like Deadpool invulnerable. Yeah. He gets hurt, and then he heals. In this one, they just don't hurt him.
No.
Yeah, so he does the full death scene, and he quotes 3 death scenes.
He says, "Hold me close, Ed. I'm afraid of the dark. Tell Tiny home I won't be home for Christmas, and then tell Scarlett I give a damn." And between each take, he coughs, and then for the final one, he just coughs in the goon's face.
Yeah, so he does Old Yeller first, and then Christmas Carol, like Tiny Tim, and then Gone with the Wind, which is the, "Quite frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn." He then, go on, sorry.
I was going to say, then the audience appears he gets given an Oscar nomination But my favorite thing is if you look at Dorian, he starts fixing himself up.
Yeah, he does his hair and stuff. It's so funny. You
That means there is a crowd there.
Yeah, so you get the silhouette appear, and Dorian's like aware of this silhouette of a crowd.
So like, yeah, it says supernatural stuff much happen, but it's just my favorite detail. Like, even in that one moment, he's being very vain.
Yeah, and the Mask does the Sally Fields Oscar acceptance. Like, you love me, you really love me. Dorian tries to shoot the Mask, but as he goes to, the Mask like bounces off and disappears out of the Coco Bongo.
Yeah,
and
then Kellaway shows up.
Kellaway and the rest of the police show up and try to arrest Dorian, but Dorian's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then obviously the police find Dorian's man dead upstairs, so they're going to question him. Kellaway also finds the piece of Stanley's pajamas and immediately remembers them, which is a bit weird.
Well, he did comment on them that morning for being
He did.
shit.
Stanley is woken up by Kellaway again, and he opens his closet, but he realizes all the money's in there.
Yeah.
So he's like trying to push it all back in, and he's struggling. And Milo, he's getting in the way as well.
And then he throws Milo's frisbee in there, which Milo is not happy about.
Kellaway, when he answers the door, Kellaway says, "Do you know anything about this Mask character?" It's like, oh, so you're calling him the Mask, which is weird. Like, there's no...
In the comic, he's just green face.
No, it's called Big Head.
Oh yeah, Big Head, that's it.
Big Head in the comics. Kellaway points out that he must know, as he robbed the bank that Stanley works at, and they found a piece of material that's the same PJs as Stanley has at the Coco.
All his pajamas.
What kind of world is this coming to where a man's pajama drawer isn't safe, Tim? What kind of world?
I don't know, but I agree with the full bubble that appeared above your head.
Well, I love that this is just going to be on the YouTube videos. I'm not going to edit that out. That's fine. Kellaway and the cops are now watching footage of the bank robbery, and none of the prints actually match Dorian's men. They're going to dust for Stanley's prints, at the place that Stanley works, where his prints will almost definitely be.
Be on the money, yeah,
Jesus Christ. Dorian offers a $50,000 bounty on the Mask and warns Tina about people double-crossing him.
Yeah.
Stanley's boss gets on him for being late again, but Stanley threatens to tell his dad that he's running it like the personal piggy bank, or maybe he'll tell the IRS and he'll arrange a little vacation at Club Fed.
It's like, Charlie goes like, wow, like that was amazing. Yeah, I don't feel like myself.
Charlie loves it. He's got tickets for them to go to the Coco Bongo charity ball. This is where Tina comes in, and it's all a bit weird for me, because like, why would she come in? She's telling him she doesn't want to open the account. She won't have much money anymore. But she's actually just trying to find out who the Mask is.
Yeah.
Stanley does the stupidest thing here. He says, I know the Mask. He's like, the cops are still in there investigating. Fucking idiot. Stanley takes the Mask to the Mask expert who was on the TV earlier.
Yeah.
He says it's Scandinavian, a representation of one of the Norse gods.
Yeah, Loki.
Loki, who we now as a society know of Loki as the god of mischief thanks to Marvel, which I feel like if this is in the same universe as Marvel and people have seen, like in the 90s, they would have seen Captain Marvel already. That's why they know about superpowers and they're not freaked out by the Mask. I don't know.
And also in the Son of the Mask movie, the main villain is Loki trying to get the mask back.
Is not Tom Hiddleston, obviously.
No. It's Alan Cummings.
Not like Tom Hiddleston then.
No. Very different performance.
So Stanley tries to prove that the Mask has powers, but it doesn't work because it only works at night.
Yeah.
He doesn't know whether to see Tina as himself or the Mask. The was like, well, just go as both, which he completely misinterprets. They're both getting the wrong end of the stick.
Well, what the psychiatrist says, like, if I give you an answer, will you get the hell out of my office?
Kellaway has got the prints back and they are Stanley's. No way. At the place he works, no way. Stanley shows up at what is called Landfill Park.
Yeah. And
he meets Tina. He's got the Mask in a briefcase. And they're kind of watching the
sunset.
City. But then Stanley chickens out and runs behind a bush and comes back as the Mask, who is dressed as a... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, like, because you can see, like, Tina actually was enjoying spending time with Stanley.
Yeah, he kind of bottles it when he's actually kind of doing well.
Yeah.
He comes back as the Mask, stereotypically dressed as a French person. So he's got like a beret and a striped shirt. and euphemisms out the wazoos about croissants and pate. It all gets a little bit salty.
Yeah.
Tina seems... What's really funny is that she seems less keen, and then all of a sudden he does this thing where he gets a cigarette and blows a heart, and then like from his nostril blows an arrow.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden she's smiling and she's impressed. Like,
but there's a bit when like she kicks him in the balls, and like I think this is like the one line I remember from The Mask repeatedly, which goes, "She is so coy. I love it."
yeah, that's
Like,
very...
It's very Pepe Le Pew.
Oh, Pepe Le Pew was a sex pest.
Yeah, and French.
I hadn't even considered that this was inspired by Pepe Le Pew, actually.
That's all I could think. It's like, French sex pest.
Now, the line that really I didn't understand till I was an adult, and now it's one of one of the ones that sticks with me. And he says, "Now, like Napoleon, I will divide and conquer." And the police shout, "Freeze!" And what does he do? He actually freezes Solid.
And again, they just don't react to this.
Yeah. When they tell him he's under arrest, he does a bit from The Fugitive. He goes, "It wasn't me, it was the one-armed man."
And it's like, yeah, I did it, and I'm proud of it. What are they going to do to me, Sarge? What are they going to do?
He's just constant movie and cartoon references. I wish they did a version of this. You know, like Spaced on the DVD, there's a references meter.
Yeah.
You ever watch Spaced?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. We'll have to do the version with the references meter at some point and talk about it. It's so
Right,
good.
up to 100.
Yeah. The people at the newspaper know about the cops tailing Stanley, and Penny offers to go. I don't know how they know. They must be listening in on a scanner or something.
Yeah.
The cops search the Mask, and he's got so much good stuff. He's got a bowling pin, a mousetrap, a rubber chicken, a bazooka, and a picture of Kellaway's wife. And the way they did this actually was they had the trousers obviously were cut at the back, and there was just props guys just handing the stuff. And there's a really great line here when Kellaway freaks out about the picture of his wife. He goes, "I figured you'd have a sense of humour. After all, you married her." So hard.
What's funny is as you hear him say that, you can hear him unclinking his handcuffs.
Oh, so yeah, they added a bit of ADR kind of the metal clink, and yeah, he kind of his arms come back round and he kind of slaps him in the face, doesn't he? And then runs out, and they turn out and they got the handcuffs on them. And he goes out of the park and he barricades the gate closed. And he turns around and they're just surrounded by police.
And he does the scream where literally his eyes and his skull, they sound like all just come out his face, and then they're back into it.
And we get one of the best scenes, which is the Cuban Pete dance scene, where he starts singing and dancing and all the cops join in. This scene, they wanted to cut it. Russell wanted to cut it, but they put it in front of test audiences and they all said it was one of their favourite scenes.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So I don't love in regular films where a musical breaks out unless there's an explanation for it. And I think The Mask's powers are an explanation of it in this.
I mean, I think he did the Hey Pachuco scene. So it's shown this can be done. So to have it, man, it makes sense.
Yeah, there are definitely examples of it not making sense, but like in Scrubs, the musical episode is because the woman's had a tumor in her brain.
Yeah.
In the last episode of Doctor Who, it's the goblins. It's their song.
Yeah. He just continues with it.
And the Doctor and Millie try to join in. Ruby, sorry, tried to join in, and you could tell that both of them are like looking at each other, shrugging like that we're making this up.
Yeah.
It's going to make sense. Like they're not just like joining in and knowing it. Kellaway, I presume, because he's a joyless prick, is immune to the power of dance. And
his partner Doyle is. He like starts to like that. He goes, if you go in there, I'll blow your head off.
If you join in, I'm going to shoot you. Yeah. The Mask runs when Kellaway kind of comes in and breaks it up, and he runs down an alleyway, and a woman screams at him, and this is where the non-consensual kiss happens. As she screams, he just kisses her. He does the thing where he pulls the mask off, and we see the power and the lightning.
Yeah.
Kind of the effects on him pulling it off are really cool. They do a pretty good job. And as he's pulling it off, Penny pulls up with her car, and the cops start shooting, and he drives over the car and dives in the passenger seat. And Penny and Stanley drive off to the newspaper kind of warehouse where they print, the printing house.
Yeah.
And they're kind of sat on some newspapers chatting away. And Stanley, she says she saw everything. And Stanley says the mask kind of lets him do anything, but it has also wrecked his life.
Yeah.
It's quite an intense moment. And it's quite their chemistry has always been there, like from the couple of scenes, and it looks like they're about to kiss. And then Dorian shows up, and fuck you, Peggy, because she's actually just set him up. She set him up and got the 50k. She has claimed the bounty.
And you said it's like, oh, but I can't afford my condo.
Yeah, she's such a cunt. There is actually a scene that's deleted from this where she gets killed.
Yeah.
But they kept her alive because they wanted her for the sequel, which was good. They wanted a sequel with Jim Carrey, not Son of the Mask sequel, but never obviously ended up panning out.
What happened?
They're going to drop Stanley in the printing press if he doesn't tell them how the mask works. And
put it on.
Just put it on. So Dorian puts on the mask and he's fucking horrifying.
Literally a demon.
He says, "What a rush," which to me is two different references. It's obviously the Road Warriors. And that is the line that is also in Nightmare on Elm Street, which is also directed by Chuck Russell.
Nice.
Dorian seems to have more control over the mask, which to me suggests because he's already let all of his deepest, darkest desires out anyway.
Yeah.
So his personality is the same. He just has the powers.
Yeah.
The gang go to Stanley's apartment and take the stolen money. Milo sees Stanley out the window tied up in the car, and he does this really clever. I don't know how they got the dog to do it, but he kind of stops and slowly walks past the gang, looks at them. Then when he realizes they're not looking, he just runs. Milo chases the car, which you'd think is impossible, but in an American city, no, you could.
Yeah.
You have to stop at every fucking block. They drop Stanley right in Kellaway's lap after he goes, "What's going to happen?" Stanley Ipkiss gets dropped in my lap, and he does.
And what's is his hands are bound, his mouth is gagged. They don't address that at all.
No. Well, that shows you that Kellaway's got tunnel vision for getting Stanley. He's also got a green rubber mask in his pocket. Stanley gets put in a cell, and which is weird because if they think he actually has the powers of the mask, why would they do that? Well, that's not going to hold him.
No.
Milo barks outside, and Stanley's like, "You need to find a new place to live." The next day, Tina comes and visits Stanley and tells him that Dorian's going to do something horrible at the charity ball. And Stanley explains the mask bringing that kind of the darkest side or the deepest down stuff out.
Yeah.
And obviously now Dorian has it. Tina says that she likes Stanley, not the mask, and that she's going to go on the run and she'll let him know where she ends up. But that doesn't work out because who's outside, Tim?
Dorian's men.
Dorian's men. They've tailed her, and as Stanley hears her scream, he's putting toilet tissue around the toilet so he can go for a shit.
It's so delicately as well.
It's like what you do in a public toilet.
Oh god!
And so what that says to me is, from this point on to the end of the movie, Stanley needs shit. He's doing everything with that "I need a poo" energy.
That's why he's in a rush for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, he tries to wake up the guards to kind of go and help Tina, but he's like, "Shut up, Ipkiss." So he calls out for Milo, who's still kind of hanging out in the alleyway behind the jail. Tina gets cornered by Dorian's men, and Dorian comes out saying he's going to take her to the party and that they have to pick out something pretty for her to wear. This all gets a bit abusive now.
Yeah.
It's a bit dark. Milo is trying to jump up to the window, and he just makes it after 10 times of trying. After Stanley shouts at him, "Put some effort into it."
Sorry, the final time he says "Do it for Daddy," and that's when he does it in slow motion.
He gets him through the bars of the cell, and he tells him to go get the keys from the guard, like he does earlier on with the car keys or the door keys.
Yeah.
And first he gets the cheese, not the keys. It's like, not the cheese, put the cheese down.
And then even when Milo brings the keys over to Stanley, he's still being resistant to actually give it to him.
Yeah, he's still a bit of a dick about keeping that. And if you ever play Cats with a Dog, they can be funny about handing it back over at first.
Yeah.
Tina goes to spark up a cigarette in the limo, and Dorian says, "Don't do that. There's fucking dynamite everywhere." And he shows her the case of dynamite.
Yeah.
So Stanley, thanks to the help from Milo, gets out of the cell, steals the guard's gun, and as he's about to leave from the cell area, bumps into Kellaway, and he points the gun straight at him. He's like, "How are you going to get out of here? It's a police station." He's like, "You're going to take me." And he makes Kellaway at gunpoint pretend that he's taking Ipkiss somewhere else.
Yeah.
And
I'm a menace. I should be locked up.
He escorts him to the car, and Milo goes with them as well, which is only of suspicion to his partner. Dorian puts the mask on in the car, and we see just like the lightning flash in the car, which I think is a really good way of saving some budget. The Coco Bongo
do the thing, constantly do the CG for it.
Yeah, the Coco Bongo is having a big ball, and they have a giant piggy bank over the room, and it's kind of there's like some of the models are climbing up and putting the money into it.
Yeah.
Charlie is in there being a creep, obviously, not worried about where Stanley is, just hitting on women. Also, the mayor's there as well, kind of giving a little press interview.
Yeah.
Nico's there, surrounded by all these goons. Dorian blows through the door with the mask on. And as he kind of struts his way in, we see Stanley driving like a lunatic because he's only got one arm, and Kellaway's still handcuffed to him.
Yeah.
Oh, and he's got the gun in the hand that's also handcuffed. Nico takes a second to realise that the guy in the mask is Dorian, and they start a big shootout between the two, but Dorian just stands there while Nico and his men hide behind tables. Nico fully unloads like 6 rounds into Dorian's chest. And what does Dorian do?
He basically absorbs all the bullets and just spits them out through his mouth, killing
like
Nico.
like a minigun. It's so cool. Dorian says that he's now the host. Stanley, Kellaway, and Milo, don't forget Milo, pull up outside. Stanley says that Kellaway and Milo are going to have to stay in there, and he handcuffs Kellaway into the car, but gives him the radio so he can help ask for backup. He also then tells Milo to stay there, says Daddy's going to go kick some ass, which I was like, no, you're not. Well, he actually does. He sneaks in and he takes out one guard stealthily.
And then he gives the other gun that he gets off that guard to Charlie to help sneak people out.
Yeah. Dorian's goons shoot down the piggy bank and all the money kind of flies everywhere. Dorian says it's time to go out with a bang, and he puts the dynamite and sets a timer for 10 minutes, which, interesting fact, is 10 minutes before the end of the movie.
Oh, wow.
He says like the fun's going to end, and then the movie ends in 10 minutes. Like almost like they did it on purpose. He also then ties Tina to the tree where a lot of the dynamite is being held, which is lovely of him. And then Stanley's like hiding under a table with a gun. He goes, "This is the moment of truth where a man shows what he's really made of." And then you hear a gun click, and he goes, "Drop it, Imkiss." Shit. He's about to have his like Die Hard moment, and he's
immediately caught.
Milo opens the door of the car. Kellaway's still handcuffed. He's like, "That's one smart dog." Tina is still tied to the tree, but she has a last request of Dorian. What is it?
To have one kiss, but with the real Dorian, not the one that's wearing the mask.
And as he takes the mask off and lowers it down, she sneaks her leg out and kicks it out of his hand. And it kind of flies across the room. And it's almost as if, like when it come back in the window earlier, it knows who it doesn't want to catch it.
Yeah.
So it's like avoiding all the goons as they're trying to like jump for it as it spins like a frisbee. And who catches it?
Good old Milo.
Milo grabs it in his jaws and runs off. Stanley and Dorian then start a fist fight as all the goons chase Milo. One of them grabs his little legs. And as he grabs his little legs, he drops the mask. And Milo puts the mask on and becomes one of my favourite moments of this thing, where Milo the mask is just the best. I love that dog. Dorian is beating on Stanley, and Stanley says, "I hope you can enjoy victory with one friggin' eye," and just pokes him in the eye.
And then he like gets on top and starts beating over it, and he goes, "I'm winning." It's like, wow, he's actually winning.
Yeah, he actually started. It's weird. As the fight goes on, he progressively gets tougher, and you feel like that's the influence of the mask kind of coming out on him finally.
Yeah.
Master Milo is brilliant. He's like peeing on people from above and biting people. Stanley somehow basically wins the fight. He kind of does one last blow and punches Dorian, and Dorian goes down. And Milo kind of runs up and starts licking Stanley with the mask still on. And Milo's like, "Oh my God." And he takes off the mask.
He actually says, "What kind of, is this some kind of new breed?"
Yeah. And he kind of peels the mask off Milo. And they all start shooting him. So he jumps behind the bar. And obviously what happens when he jumps behind the bar?
He puts the mask on.
He comes back up as the mask and says, "Did you miss me?" And then he drinks. And all the juice comes out of him. And he goes, "I guess not." The mask then does a Dirty Harry. He kind of gets out these super guns and says, "Do you feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?" And they all run off. And they've all just got flags in that say like, "Bang." The mask eats the dynamite to save the club and save Tina. And he drops a line as, "That's a one spicy meatball," which is apparently from an advert which went viral because like when all the the outtakes were released because the guy just couldn't get the line right. And all he had to say was, "That's a spicy meatball." Dorian tries to escape, but the mask paints like a flush lever and pulls it, and he goes down the drain in this like pond that's in the middle of the club for some reason. Fancy club, I suppose.
Yeah, you got so like it's kind of like a recycling thing, so it goes down and round and round.
Yeah. Stanley takes off the mask just as the police burst in.
Yeah.
Kellaway wants Stanley, but the mayor's like, "He's not the mask. Dorian's the mask. I saw him."
What's it calls the mayor? Chunky.
Yeah. Stanley did break out of jail and hold a policeman at gunpoint. Still crimes, even if you're innocent. But the mayor
let him off his side.
Well, technically the mayor is in charge of the police, I suppose. He's like, "No, leave him alone. Leave the dog alone as well." Because he's like,
exactly.
"Dog." Stanley, Tina and Charlie drive off and they go onto the bridge. I don't think it's the same bridge because the bridge earlier looks like it's all wood.
Yeah,
this one,
I think it's a different bridge, yeah.
And Stanley throws the mask in the river and Charlie's like, "No, I want it." And he jumps in.
He dives in after, but then Milo takes it anyway.
Apparently the original script had Charlie putting the mask on and you see Charlie with the mask. But obviously they would have had to then spend the money on another set of prosthetics. Tina and Stanley kiss and he does a mask line. Just milking. But not as the mask, just as himself. And we fade to black and that is the end of The Mask. I've got a couple of little tidbits though.
Go for it.
Do you want some tidbits?
Of course. Chuck
Russell, the director, said that Carrey's body movements were so good and flexible and cartoonish that they saved a ton of money on CGI because he could do stuff that they thought they were going to have to CGI.
That's amazing.
The oversized teeth that the mask has weren't going to be meant for any talking scenes. They were going to shoot it in a way where you couldn't see. But Carrey took them and taught himself to talk with them in.
Wow. Mighty commitment.
Yeah. Because of the success of the film, obviously we got the spin-off, The Son of Mask, but we also got the cartoon.
Yes.
Which I really want to watch it now because I'm like, was that good? I feel like it was good, but I don't remember.
I don't actually remember much of it.
No. And at the end of the first comic, Stanley is killed.
Yeah.
And it's his girlfriend who kills him and becomes the mask. And the mask actually gets handed on to like 20 different characters. I've read both. There's 2 omnibuses of all of it. And I've read them both. Sat on a beach on holiday for him. I had them on my iPad. It was good times. But yeah, like Stanley's only the first one to get it. And he only has it for like a couple of days in the comics and it's done. Yeah, that's it. That's my last tidbit. There's another difference with the comics. I don't need to ask what we think because we both said we love this movie at the beginning. I love this movie. I think it was such a great vehicle for Jim Carrey to show his physical comedy.
Yeah.
Like, because he gets to show it in other things like in Lie Lie, he does the bathroom scene, but that's it. But this is nearly all him being the mask, being physical. Such a good movie. So enjoyable. And is aged pretty well.
No, absolutely, yeah.
Apart from the non-consensual kiss, which in a weird way is done in a like kind of, I think it's meant to be in not an aggressive way, is it? Because she's like an older woman who screams in his face.
Yeah.
And he kind of does it to shut her up as opposed to like a lusty thing.
Yeah, I think that's
don't get me wrong, it's still horrible.
Still bad, yeah.
But it's the way it's sold isn't like an aggressive attack. Yeah.
Absolutely,
But
yeah.
aside from that, I think as a film from 94, isn't it? It's aged very well.
I think it's just an amazing movie. I think the comedy's just hilarious. I think what Jim Carrey himself is just amazing in it. And yeah, there's like a certain like reputation that comic book movies have now. And I think you could tell someone this wasn't a comic book movie and they probably would believe you.
Yeah, they're so like bombastic and big budget now, and they've done this one on quite a small budget with some basic special effects, and it's gone really well. I love this movie. Like, the reason I said I wanted to do it is because I wanted to throw back to that nostalgia that I had as a kid and as a teen and even into my 20s and now 30s. I still love this movie.
Yeah, I still love it too. It's just amazing.
Well, that's The Mask. We've talked about The Mask because it's what I would consider a big cult one off of our list, Tim.
Yes.
Speaking of big cult ones, what am I watching? What are we playing? What are we listening to? What are we talking about in 2 weeks?
Oh, wow. So I'm actually very excited about this one, even though it's a very recent one. So at the end of last year, I sent you what was my top 10 film list. Mm-hmm. And there was one film that you were very confused that was there. So that made you go, oh, you haven't seen it. You can watch it. So we're going to be talking about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which I honestly think is probably one of the greatest animated movies of all time.
We're going to a proper kids movie. It's not something we've really done.
A proper kids movie, and I am really excited about it. I think it's a fantastic movie.
Good way to go, because Shrek is obviously a bit of a classic, a cult classic, if you will.
Yes.
Kind of filling our remit. So kind of doing a spin-off of Shrek. I think it's a good way to go. I'm looking forward to this, actually.
Yeah, I can't.
I like the original Shrek movies. I don't think I've seen the first. This is the second Puss in Boots, right?
This is the second Puss in Boots movie.
I don't think I've seen the first one, but
you don't need to. You don't need to. And this is, and as we'll see, it's nothing like any of the Shrek movies.
It's really,
yeah, it's completely own thing, completely unique art style, and a completely different style of comedy. So,
unique art. This was a good year for unique art with Spider-Man and Turtles. So, yeah, okay, I'm in. Let's do this.
Cool.
Well, thanks for listening to and watching Cult Classic Society. I'm Bobby Davies. You can find me on the old socials at bdavies_creative. That's on X and on Instagram. You can also follow my work with Purpose Wrestling at Purpose Wrestling everywhere except X, where it's at Wrestle Purpose. Also, just search Purpose Wrestling on YouTube. You'll find us. And on Patreon, if you're so inclined, if you want to give us a bit of money, we'd really appreciate it. Come to a live show. Nothing better than live wrestling. Also, I'm just plugging so much stuff now. Mighty Wrestling. About the time this airs, Mighty Wrestling will be having its first show, the 17th. I think this might come out just after the first show. If I've got my time.
No, before it.
The week before. Excellent news. 17th, Saturday the 17th of February. First family-friendly wrestling show I'm putting together. And not to give away any secrets, I'm not producing this show.
Oh.
As I normally do with Purpose. I might be the other side of the camera.
Oh, you're going to be the MC?
Maybe I am, Tim. Maybe I am. You'll have to come down to find out. Because, but it's in my hometown. It's a family-friendly wrestling show, and I am looking forward to it. Where can we find you, Timothy Martini?
You can find me on all the socials at the Tim Martini, and you can also find my music on Spotify. Yeah, please listen to it.
Lovely.
Where can I find our socials?
If you want to follow the podcast, we are everywhere now. With this little expansion we've done, we are on Instagram, CC Society Pod, X, CC Society Pod. You search Cult Classic Society or CC Society Pod on Reddit, you'll find our Reddit. We are on TikTok, CC Society Pod. You can email us, ccsocietypod@gmail.com. You can look us up on Facebook. You'll have to look up Cult Classic Society, but you'll find us there. And now on YouTube, where if you're watching this, look up Cult Classic Society. You'll find us. There's 7 things. 7 things we both have to remember to plug at the end of every fucking episode, Tim.
Why have we done this to ourselves?
I don't know. But follow us there.
Yes, and if you're already watching on YouTube and you're not subscribed, subscribe and ring-a-ling that ding-a-ling bell.
You remember to do the YouTube stuff that I would never remember.
We have to do it now, because we decided to do this.
We do.
Well, I think that's been us. I've been Tim Martini.
And somebody stop me.
And that's been Bobby. See you all for Puss in Boots.
Bye.